Every single man who sailed with Odysseus died. Not some of them. Not most of them. Every single one. 12 ships left Troy. 12 crews of men who had survived 10 years of the bloodiest war in the ancient world. Men who had watched Achilles fight. Men who had stood inside the wooden horse while an entire city walked past them in the dark. They survived all of that. And then they sailed home with Odysseus. And not one of them made it. The man history calls the cleverest hero in Greek mythology. The man who ended the Trojan War with a single idea, led every person who trusted him to their death. And the Greeks knew it. They wrote it down. They put it in the opening lines of the Odyssey. They just never told you what it actually means. In the next 10 minutes, you're going to find out 3 things that completely rewrite the story of Odysseus. Why the gods weren't his enemies, and what actually kept him from going home. The decision he made in the first week after Troy that sealed every man's fate before the journey even began. And the one person in this entire story who was smarter than Odysseus the whole time, and he never once realized it. By the end of this, the cleverest man in Greece is not going to look like a hero. He's going to look like the most dangerous man you could ever trust your life to. To understand what Odysseus really was, you have to understand what the Greeks actually valued. They had a word, metis. It meant cunning intelligence, practical wisdom, the ability to read a situation and find the angle nobody else had seen. It was considered the highest form of human excellence, higher than strength, higher than courage, higher even than honesty. Odysseus had more metis than any mortal alive. He faked madness to avoid going to war. When that failed, he built the wooden horse. He talked his way out of the Cyclops' cave. He navigated past the Sirens, past Scylla and Charybdis, through 10 years of the gods themselves trying to stop him. Every mythology channel on YouTube will tell you this story as a triumph. But here's what they skip. The Odyssey begins with Homer telling you directly, before the story even starts, that Odysseus's men perished through their own sheer folly. It's right there in the opening lines. The official version, the gods-approved narrative. But if you read what actually happened, scene by scene, decision by decision, a different story emerges. A story about a man so committed to his own survival that everyone around him became expendable. The first stop after Troy was Ismarus. They hadn't been sailing a week. Troy was still smoking behind them. And Odysseus's men landed, slaughtered the men of the city, took the women, ransacked the temples, and stayed to feast and drink through the night. Odysseus told them to leave. He knew what was coming. They didn't listen. By morning, the Cyclops had called reinforcements from every tribe in the region. The Greeks were outnumbered, scattered, and drunk. 6 men from every ship died in the sand. That's 72 men dead in the first week. Not from monsters, not from gods, from a decision Odysseus couldn't enforce. And this is the pattern that defines the entire journey. But here's what nobody talks about. Every time Odysseus's men died, every single time, there was a moment before it happened where he knew, where his metis, his famous cunning, saw exactly what was coming. And he couldn't stop it, not because he was powerless, because the one thing the cleverest man in Greece could never solve was other people believing in him enough to actually do what he said. He could trick a Cyclops. He could deceive a goddess. He could fool the king of the dead. He could not make 12 crews of exhausted, traumatized soldiers trust his instincts over their own hunger and grief. And that gap between what he knew and what he could make others do killed every man he sailed with. The Cyclops. Odysseus and his men entered Polyphemus's cave and found it full of cheese and meat and milk. His men begged him to take what they needed and leave immediately. Odysseus refused. He wanted to meet the owner of the cave. He wanted to see if this giant shepherd would honor the sacred law of hospitality. He wanted, if we're honest, to see what would happen. 2 men were eaten before he had his plan. His solution was brilliant. He gave the Cyclops wine until it was drunk, told it his name was Nobody, then drove a burning stake through its eye while it slept. When Polyphemus screamed and the other Cyclopes came running and asked who had hurt him, it said, "Nobody. Nobody hurt me." And they went away. Perfect. Elegant. Exactly the kind of solution that gets retold for 3,000 years. But here is what Odysseus did next. As they were rowing away from the island, safely out of reach, his men begging him to stay silent, Odysseus stood up in the boat and shouted his real name at the blinded giant. Not nobody, Odysseus, son of Laertes, king of Ithaca. He needed the Cyclops to know who had beaten it. Polyphemus was the son of Poseidon. And the moment Odysseus gave his name, Polyphemus called on his father to curse him, to ensure that if Odysseus ever reached home, he would arrive late, alone, on a stranger's ship, having lost all his companions. Poseidon heard. The entire 10-year journey, every storm, every island, every dead crew member, flows from that one moment of vanity. The cleverest man in Greece defeated a monster and then handed that monster's father a weapon to destroy everything he had built. Because he needed to be known. The cattle of the sun is where the last men died. Odysseus had been warned explicitly by the prophet Tiresias in the underworld, by the goddess Circe, by everyone with divine knowledge who spoke to him. Do not touch the cattle of Helios on the island of Thrinacia. He told his men. They swore an oath. Then they were trapped on the island by storms for weeks. The food ran out, and while Odysseus slept, his men broke their oath. They slaughtered the sacred cattle and feasted. When they finally sailed, Zeus sent a thunderbolt that destroyed the ship and drowned every man on board. Odysseus survived by clinging to wreckage. Every mythology channel presents this as proof of Odysseus's righteousness. He didn't eat the cattle. His men's folly destroyed them. But who made the decision to stop at that island? Odysseus. His men had begged to stop somewhere else. He had overruled them. He had chosen Thrinacia specifically because he believed he could control the situation. He couldn't. He never could. That is the actual tragedy of the Odyssey. Not that the gods were against him. Not that his men were foolish. But that the most intelligent man alive kept placing everyone around him in situations that required them to be as disciplined and far-sighted as he was. And nobody is. Nobody ever is. Now for the person who is actually smarter. While Odysseus spent 10 years making brilliant decisions that got everyone around him killed, Penelope sat in a palace surrounded by over 100 men who wanted her dead, her kingdom stolen, and her son murdered. She had no army. No gods favoring her, no divine weapons or prophetic knowledge. She had a loom. For 3 years she told the suitors she would choose a husband when she finished weaving a burial shroud. Every night she unraveled her work. 3 years. Over 100 violent men watching her every day. Not one of them figured it out. When they finally did, betrayed by a servant, she immediately had a new plan. The contest of the bow. A challenge so precisely designed that only one man alive could win it, and that man was on his way home. Penelope didn't know Odysseus was coming. She designed the contest as a trap for the suitors anyway. The Greeks called Odysseus the man of many ways, the man with 1,000 angles. But Penelope, with no ships, no weapons, no divine favor, surrounded by enemies in her own home, outplayed 100 men for 20 years. And she did it in complete silence. The Odyssey is named after the wrong person. So here is what I need you to decide. Odysseus survived. He made it home. He killed the suitors, reunited with his son, and reclaimed his kingdom. By the only measure that mythology usually applies, he won. But every man who trusted him died. And the one person who matched him was the woman he left behind. Does that make Odysseus the hero the Greeks claimed he was? Or does it make him the most brilliantly selfish survivor in the history of storytelling?